The mood is one of extreme anger. I've reported on terrorist attacks before, I've reported on disasters before. I've never seen a scene where people are so angry. From the absolute start, people were, pointing out that this never had to happen, and the anger has just grown over the last few days. There were protests today, and outside the council offices, and the town hall was stormed by people. A lot of people are really upset that they haven't been officials on the ground speaking to them, that all of the volunteering has been organised entirely by volunteers, all the donations coming in, code volunteers, not to actually, council members and that sort of thing. There's a lot of anger because people feel nobody was held accountable, and people aren't, being held accountable now.
Yeah, you just came back from these demonstrations and the run into the council office in Kensington. Now, where is Prime Minister May at the time? At
the time, Theresa May was in a nearby church, St Teresa's. Some of the protesters and some of the residents heard about this, and while she was in the church was surrounded. People were desperate to have answers and to have Theresa May come out and say what was going to be done. Yesterday, Theresa May visited the site, but she refused to meet residents. She met police officers, she met firefighters, she wouldn't meet any residents, any survivors. And initially, the Prime Minister's office said this was because of safety concerns, but the fact that the Queen today came down, the fact that Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, came down, and they both met residents and had no security problems, just seems like it's a complete and utter excuse. People are very angry, so they surrounded the church. She came out, refused to speak to them, and jumped straight in the car, and everybody was shouting at her.
Do you think that this situation, this drama, could hurt her politically?
Absolutely. I mean, we had an election just over a week ago. She thought she'd win a big majority. She now has a hung parliament, and now, because of her housing policies, because of what's happened to, in a council that's run by Conservative councillors, May seems running scared. At the moment as well, there's a lot of focus on the fact that the housing minister, Gavin Barwell, who lost his seat last Thursday, has now, because he's no longer an MP, joined Theresa May's office as the chief of staff. Back in March, there was due to be a report into tower blocks across the UK to see whether or not they were fire safe, and Gavin Barwell, the housing minister, put it off. He's now working with Theresa May in Number 10, and people are demanding answers for why this report wasn't commissioned, and whether or not it's right that one of Theresa May's closest allies stopped a report into fire safety that could have saved lives.
Now, do you think that there are more buildings like this one that aren't secure enough? Could this happen again? Are there more like these kinds of death traps?
Absolutely. In 2009, there was a similar fire in South London. There were 6 fatalities, 3 women, 3 children. Obviously, there are far more in this instance. So far, the police say 30, but we've been told to expect no survivors. That will go higher and higher. After that fire, there was a report commissioned. It came out earlier in the year, and it said that there are 4,000 tower blocks across the UK that have the same problems with fire. So this could happen in any one of these 4,000 tower blocks. And each of these tower blocks will have, between 400, 500 people. That's a huge number of lives that can be lost. All it takes is one small fire, and it could just happen again so easily.
Right. Now, Grenfell Tower, are you saying, because this is what you published in The Guardian, that this drama could have been avoided if there was a better investment in the building?
Absolutely. A number of things happened that meant that stopped this from being prevented. First of all, the residents kept saying to the council, to the tenant management organisation, to the people who actually did the work, that they were worried about safety. They were worried that there weren't proper fire escapes brought in. During the fire, the lights didn't work in the fire escape, so people were running down in the dark. And over again, the tenants had warned that the lights weren't working. The other problem is that the cladding on the outside, the small panels that were brought in that cause a fire to spread so rapidly, they weren't actually fireproof. Those panels cost £22 each, and to buy the fireproof panels would have cost £24. So to save £5,000, the people who renovated the block made it flammable just to save £5,000, and now we're looking at absolutely dozens of lives lost just to save some money.
Now, Dawn, would you say that this disaster is a symbol of the rising inequality in your country between rich and poor?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think housing is the barometer of inequality in the UK. People who have houses are, very wealthy and they're very, very settled. Everybody else is increasingly spending more and more of their earnings on rent. Increasing numbers of people are homeless. Since the Conservatives came in 2010, homelessness has doubled. In Britain we have 120,000 children who are in temporary accommodation because they are homeless. It's a huge, huge problem. And the other problem is that, when there are concerns, people in social housing who are poor, who are, subject to inequality, aren't listened to whatsoever. I spoke to a resident who said that, 4 streets away where there are £3 million houses, where very, very rich people live, because Kensington is the richest borough in the UK. It has very, very poor people, but it has extremely rich people just next door. And a woman who lived in the tower said to me that, she knew that if she lived 4 streets away and asked for, her bin to be replaced, it would have happened. But she couldn't even get people round to check the fire safety in her block.